Right, the Diljit Dosanjh film controversy, where a Pakistani actress is starring opposite Diljit Dosanjh, has led to a huge controversy. Mumbai film body is mulling a ban on Diljit Dosanjh in India. This means it wouldn't be just about producers saying that we will not release the film in India, but this could prove to be a bigger controversy. Why? Because the ban already is in place against Pakistani artists in Indian films. Boycott Diljit Dosanjh call is coming in now. The film body in Mumbai has said will not allow the release of Diljit's films. Not just this film, but other films as well. And that could spark a bigger concern for Diljit Dosanjh. He's a popular actor-singer. But because he's starring opposite this Pakistani actress, Hania Amir, she's one of the popular actresses.
It's military plus diplomatic strike that we are seeing. India is also cracking down on Pakistani artists now. In the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack, India has blocked Pakistani films and also disabled Instagram handles of Pakistani singers, actors and even musicians.
So since yesterday, some media has been reporting that IIT Kanpur has set up a committee to decide if a poem by poet Faiz is anti-Hindu or not.
Instagram handles of Mahira Khan, Hania Amir, Ali Zafar, Sanam Saeed, Bilal Abbas, Sajal Alai, all of them have been restricted in India. This comes days after Fawad Khan's upcoming film Abir Gulal release was banned in India.
मैंने बताया उसकी हाई लेवल इंक्वायरी कमेटी बैठी गई है और उसकी जब जांच आ जाएगी तभी एक्शन होगा. हम कोई ऐसा एक्शन नहीं. ये भी जा रहा है एंटी नेशनल कुछ और पाकिस्तानी नारे कोई नहीं नारे लगाए गए हैं. अरे बिना जांच के कैसे पता पड़ेगा किस तरह के नारे. इसीलिए तो जांच कमेटी बैठी है ना.
The panel was initiated after several complaints were registered calling the poem offensive to Hindu sentiments.
Long years ago, we made a trip with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge.
8 नवंबर 2016 की रात्रि को 12 बजे से
चीफ मिनिस्टर के लिए मेरा एक ही संदेश है कि वो राज धर्म का पालन करें.
हार्डवेयर वालों की सोच क्या होती है, हार्ड वर्क वालों की सोच क्या होती है. अरे ये ना पंजाब की खुशबू.
So, there is a current trend on Indian social media, basically X and Instagram, around boycotting Diljit Dosanjh. His crime is that he has made a movie which is soon to be released and which will have a Pakistani actor in it. And the argument is that in times of national strife, he should not have done that. I wanted to dig into this notion of what is right and wrong as is currently being seen in India and how it impacts art, because while this is happening on one side, the director Vivek Agnihotri has let us know that he's coming up with a film called The Bengal Files, and I do not think I need to get any deeper into what that film might entail. We have recently seen a barrage of such films from him and others like Chhawa and then his Kashmir Files, etc., that I would categorize as hyper-jingoistic art. So while on one side it seems that domestically we will keep churning films that showcase one specific group as evil, we will also block any attempts at having that other side, namely the South Asian Muslim, present themselves on screen in even an apolitical way like this film with Diljit. Funnily enough, about 2 years ago, IIT Kanpur decided to ban Faiz's poetry from its curriculum. There is a strange moral arithmetic at work in our nation, a warped calculus in which proximity to things could become seditious. Nearness, in this case, being Diljit and that Pakistani actor, or in case of Faiz's poetry, Faiz being someone who is to them is a Pakistani. That Diljit, who is a beloved figure in both Punjabi culture and popular music, should be pilloried not for any specific crime against the state, but for the imagined treachery of proximity, of sharing cinematic space with a Pakistani actor, is not a momentary cultural lapse. As I said, there is Faiz, there is Fawad Khan, and there are countless such examples that have happened in the recent past. This when we still do not know the names of the actual Pahalgam terror attackers, this when the Air India crash black box is still to be analyzed, this when we still do not know who let the security lapse happen in Pahalgam or Pathankot earlier. We seem to be powerless or incapable of asking questions to those who wield real power and make real policies and are all up in arms against people like Diljit. What it is the continuation of a long project. This project does not punish what people do, it punishes what people represent. In this case, it punishes the possibility that art by design or by accident might recognize the shared humanity of people who live across communities, borders, outside labels. When IIT Kanpur banishes Faiz's poetry from its curriculum, it is not out of literary taste, but political necessity. Faiz does not offer patriotism, he offers solidarity. And solidarity in a regime that feeds on division is a threat. His verses do not lull you, do not ask you to keep your mind at home when you read it. They agitate you. They make you look at a hungry man and feel it in your stomach. They make you hear the weeping of a mother and feel complicit in her silence. They make you look at injustice and ask questions. That is why art, cultural contact are feared. This is why poems are feared. Not because they incite riots, but because they incite conscience.
इसी कार्यक्रम में मुंबई के समता कला मंच के युवा कलाकारों ने फैज अहमद फैज की मशहूर नज्म हम देखेंगे का कुछ हिस्सा प्रस्तुत किया। ये कविता 1979 में फैज ने पाकिस्तान में तानाशाही के खिलाफ लिखी थी, लेकिन नागपुर में इस कविता को पढ़ने से एक बड़ा विवाद हो गया। स्थानीय निवासी दत्तात्रेय शिर्के ने सीताबर्डी पुलिस स्टेशन में शिकायत दर्ज की। उनकी शिकायत का आधार एक मराठी समाचार चैनल एबीपी माझा की रिपोर्ट थी, जिसमें इस कार्यक्रम का वीडियो प्रसारित किया गया। शिर्के ने दावा किया कि कविता की पंक्तियां खासकर सब तख्त गिराए जाएंगे भारत सरकार के खिलाफ सीधा उकसावा है।
Sir, I just want to go verse by verse on the problems that, the lines which are problematic as far as the IIT Kanpur is concerned.
Yeah, please ask the question.
I just wanted to understand from you, in the complaint, the specific lines which possibly are being seen as anti-Hindu are the ones which says, सब बुत उठाए जाएंगे, सब बुत उठाए जाएंगे,
tell me what are those?
हम अहले सफा मरदूद हरम मनसद पे बिठाए जाएंगे, सब ताज उछाले जाएंगे, सब तक गिराए जाएंगे, बस नाम रहेगा अल्लाह का. They feel that this is being used as.
I'll give you the meaning.
Yes, Javed sir. What do you understand from this? Is it anti-Hindu? Is it speaking about Hindu gods?
No. I'll explain to you. It is right in front of me. I'll explain it to you. जब अर्ज़े खुदा के काबे से, it means not that Kaaba, but ये जो पूरा लैंड है, ये जो खुदा का ज़मीन है पूरी खुदा की बनाई हुई, जिसे वो कह रहा है कि ये जो है इस पे से बुत उठाए जाएंगे. ये बुत कौन है? ये डिक्टेटर्स हैं कि जो इस ज़मीन के ऊपर खुदा बन के बैठे हुए हैं. That is what he is saying. अर्ज़ मीन दुनिया, ज़मीन, नॉट काबा. कि ये जो पूरी ज़मीन है, अगर ये काबा है तो तुम उसमें बुत बन के बैठे हो, तुम खुदा बन के बैठे हो, इसलिए कि काबे के बुत खुदा थे, तुम खुदा बन के बैठे हो, तुम्हें हटाया जाएगा. और नेक्स्ट लाइन क्या है? जब अहले सफ़ा मरदूद हराम, अहले सफ़ा वर्ड हैज़ कम फ्रॉम सफाई, के जो क्लीन लोग हैं, अहल पीपल, क्लीन पीपल, इनोसेंट पीपल, गुड पीपल, मरदूद हराम, people who are condemned by religion. Haram is the symbol of religion. Mardood who is condemned. Masnad pe takht pe kaun baithega? Who will sit on the throne? People who are clean and people who are condemned by religion. Mardood haram means people who are condemned by religion. आगे चलो, क्या है next line? Read it.
मनसद पे बिठाए जाएंगे, सब ताज उछाले जाएंगे, सब तख्त गिराए जाएंगे.
Read the next line. मसनद पे, मसनद, हाँ, now do you understand that when he is saying कि जैसे जब तुम्हारा मजहब आया था तो तुमने काबे से बुत हटा दिए। हम कहते हैं ये पूरी ज़मीन जो है, ये दुनिया जो है, दिस होल वर्ल्ड इज़ अ काबा वेयर यू आर सिटिंग and pretending to be God. We will remove you. And who will sit here? The clean people, people who are condemned by religion. Mardood haram. People who are condemned by religion will sit on the throne.
उन्होंने ये भी आरोप लगाया कि एक पुरुष वक्ता ने भड़काऊ टिप्पणी करते हुए कहा है कि इस गीत की वजह से सत्ताएं हिल गई थीं। वैसे ही हमारे देश में भी सिंहासन हिलाने का वक्त आ गया है।
इसका मुझे 100% पता है, ज़ियाउल हक के रेफरेंस में है। ही वाज ए कम्युनिस्ट भी थे और वो तो एथियस्ट थे, फैज अहमद फैज जो है। उनको लेनिन का अवार्ड मिला हुआ सोवियत यूनियन से। तो वो कह रहे हैं कि जो ये बदमाशी है, जो टॉर्चर किया जाता है, क्योंकि ज़ियाउल हक इज द ओनली वन पाकिस्तान की हिस्ट्री में जिसके बारे में मशहूर है कि टॉर्चर करता था लोगों पे। उस दिन वो रुई की तरह उड़ेंगे, जिस तरह टू कनेक्टेड विद इस्लाम, कुरान, विल फ्लाई लाइक पीसेस ऑफ कॉटन, रुई की तरह उड़ेंगे। अंडर द फीट ऑफ द गवर्नड, यानी अवाम के पैरों के नीचे, दिस अर्थ शिवर शेक एंड बीट, यानी हम जो लोग हैं, अवाम जो है, वो ज्यादा बेहतर हो जाएगी तब, यानी उनके हमारे नीचे आ जाएगी। इन अदर वर्ड्स, इज ग्लैमराइजिंग डेमोक्रेसी, कि जिस दिन ये टूटेंगे, ये ज़ियाउल हक का दौर जाएगा, टॉर्चर का दौर खत्म होगा। एंड ओवर द हेड ऑफ द रूलर व्हेन लाइटनिंग विल थंडर, और जो रूलर है, जो बादशाह बन के बैठा हुआ हमारे ऊपर, उसके ऊपर बिजली का कड़ाका आएगा। बिजली का कड़ाका।
Question is, what does it do to our psyche? And why do many of us feel the need to do so, to distance ourselves from this other? And I will not make you wait a whole audio essay length for the answer to this question. The answer is simple. Only reason for the boycott Diljit movement or not engaging with Pakistan in sports and any cultural exchange is to avoid human-to-human contact with them. Lack of such contact enables us internally via our politicians, media and films like the one Vivek Agnihotri makes to dehumanize them and make it easier to hate them, which only leads to the further dehumanization of Muslims in India and abroad in the minds of the Hindu bigots. Vivek Agnihotri's cinematic project is not art. It is drift, wrapped in moral instructions, teaching the faithful that history is a tale of wounds inflicted by the other, that other. And it teaches us that salvation lies only in vengeance. But vengeance against whom? Vengeance how? These films, the Kashmir File, the Kerala Story, and now the Bengal Files, are not so much historical as they are hysterical. Films that drown fact beneath feeling, that seek not to interrogate the nation but to immunize it against any guilt. We have entered a phase in Indian culture where the screen has become a substitute for scripture. And in this new scripture, there is always a villain who prays facing Makkah. But what is forgotten in this fury is that art, real art, has always been the medium through which nations confront their ugliest selves. Picasso painted Guernica to immortalize atrocity, not to avenge it. In contrast, Agnihotri's films do not invite introspection. They demand obedience. They do not ask us to reflect, they ask us to resent. Now, some listening to this will talk about Pahalgam or 2611 or go back in time to partition and beyond, and for 1,000 crimes that Pakistan or the Muslim has done against them. To them, I will ask, why are you even listening to this? And if you are, then pause and go read a book on how the Indian state has conducted itself in Kashmir, or the general majority has treated her own minorities by not just supporting violence but electing perhaps the leader of one of the worst pogroms in India as our PM, or how the RSS and Hindu Mahasabha acted during partition. And if you're not willing to do that, ask yourself why. What frightens a nation built on myth is not tanks or treaties, not even dissent in its loudest form. What frightens such a nation is the soft sedition of beauty, a face smiling across a border, a name familiar and unafraid, a melody that slips past customs. These are not acts of defiance, they're acts of existence. And yet, in an atmosphere thick with paranoia, existence itself is seen as provocation. The body of the other is not feared because it brings bombs. It is feared because it brings resemblance, and resemblance makes hatred hard to sustain. The dehumanization of Muslims is a project that has been ongoing for decades. A project that has been fueled by rhetoric and policies that have served to further marginalize and exclude this already vulnerable community. The parallels with pre-apartheid South Africa are striking. The segregation, the discrimination, the violence, all of these are familiar tropes in the Indian context. And yet, despite the mounting evidence, despite the warnings from history, we stay quiet, while the government continues to pursue policies that can only serve to further entrench their segregation. Dehumanization is not an accident. It is architecture. It is not the sudden erosion of empathy, but it's the steady dismantling, brick by brick, law by law, film by film. It begins with exclusion from textbooks, then proceeds to exclusion from neighborhoods, then to exclusion from belonging itself. Distance is not spatial here. It is moral, emotional. To boycott a film is to boycott the possibility that a Pakistani character might elicit your compassion. To rename a Muslim locality Mini Pakistan in India is to mark its residents as aliens. To police love, to punish mingling, to legislate who can sell land to whom, these are not acts of policy, they are rituals of purification. And we have seen such rituals before. In the redlining of Black America, in the laws that are passed in South Africa, in the Nuremberg laws of Germany. That we now see them in the courts of a democratic India is not merely troubling, it is tragic. In 2014, Praveen Togaria suggested that Muslims should be forced to sell their properties in Hindu areas, and even went so far as to advocate for the imposition of Disturbed Areas Act, a law that empowers the government to restrict the sale of properties in riot-prone areas across everywhere. Recently, Uttarakhand state government issued an order to note all properties being sold between Hindus and Muslims, terming it as land jihad. The consequences of such rhetoric and policies are evident. Ghettos and forced segregation have become the norm. With Muslims relegated to the fringes of society, all big and small Indian cities have Muslim ghettos. As I said, ghettos created by the systemic policies that keep them segregated are conveniently called Mini Pakistan in jest. The Zoroastrian Housing Society Limited versus District Registrar Supreme Court judgment, which upheld the power of housing societies to restrict the sale of properties to members of other communities, has only served to legitimize this form of discrimination. In India, just 7% of the population owns 53% of the land, while Indian Muslim owns a mere 10% of that land. The result is a country that is increasingly segregated, with Muslims forced to live in ghettos that are often denied even the most basic amenities. This segregation has far-reaching consequences, from limiting access to education and employment opportunities to creating an environment in which violence and discrimination can thrive. Case in point, the Delhi riots a few years ago. The Disturbed Areas Act, which was enacted in 1986 and replaced in 1991, has only served to further entrench this segregation. By empowering the government to declare riot-prone areas as disturbed and restricting the sale of properties in these areas, it just enables events like riot to be magnified. Because now you know, and you have always known, which areas to go and attack and scream and shout when there is a riot in place. Because Muslims live in that ghetto. While the media and social media pretends to concern itself with Pakistan and Bangladesh, each such instance, we lose any hope of ever becoming an inclusive and equitable society. And our divide keeps growing. It is an astonishing feat to turn the refusal to participate in a freedom movement into a credential for running the republic. This is what RSS, BJP and the Janasangh have done. The RSS did not fight for India. It fought for a particular idea of India against other Indians. One in which Muslims were guests at best and intruders at their worst. The fire that consumed partition did not find them dousing the flames, it found them feeding it. And yet today, they wear patriotism like a sacred thread, accusing others of disloyalty while laundering their own betrayal into nationalism. It is the kind of revisionist jujitsu that Orwell warned us about. A world in which those who stayed silent during struggle now speak loudest about sacrifice. And if you think this somehow makes the Bhakt feel happy and healthy, no. While this regime is channeled towards the dehumanization and humiliation of Muslims, the other side, it's also a constant exercise in making their own followers feel like victims, and a constant lurking fear, hate, and unsaid but subtle inferiority. It is a classic abusive relationship which has resulted in a majority that is always angry and always miserable. This regime does not merely teach its followers to hate, it teaches them to feel hated. It manufactures grievance like a factory line. Every policy of exclusion is sold as a shield. Every act of aggression is framed as self-defense. The result is a psychology of perpetual siege. The majority, drunk on demographic dominance, is yet convinced of its persecution. It is the paradox of Hindutva. It demands supremacy but cloaks itself in suffering. The average Bhakt is not empowered, he is inflamed, not uplifted but unmoved. Anger becomes their default, joy becomes their enemy, and truth is only tolerated when it flatters their flag. Remember, in our normal mediocre existence, it is not often or ever that we meet extraordinary people. We meet them in books and poems and films and develop a parasocial relationship with them.
शायद मुझसे पहली सी मोहब्बत मेरी महबूब न मान, मैंने समझा था कि तू है तो दरख्शां है हयात, तेरा गम है तो गमे दहर का झगड़ा क्या है, तेरी सूरत से है आलम में शबानो गुजार, तेरी आँखों के सिवा दुनिया में रखा क्या, तू जो मिल जाए तो तकदीर निगू हो जाए। यूं न था, मैंने फ़क़त चाहा था यूं हो जाए, और भी दुख है ज़माने में मोहब्बत के सिवा, राहतें और भी हैं वस्ल की राहत के सिवा। अनगिनत सदियों के तारीख बेईमाना तिलिस्म, रेशम व अतलस व कमखाब में बुनवाए हुए, जा बजा बिकते हुए कूचों बाजार में जिस्म, खाक में लिथड़े हुए खून में नहलाए हुए, जिस्म निकले हुए अमराज के तनूरों से, पीप बहती हुई गलते हुए नासूरों से, लौट जाती है नज़र अब भी उधर क्या कीजिए, अब भी दिलकश है तेरा हुस्न मगर क्या कीजिए, और भी दुख है ज़माने में मोहब्बत के सिवा, राहतें और भी हैं वस्ल की राहत के सिवा, मुझसे पहली सी मोहब्बत मेरी महबूब न।
It's that reason why they are afraid of. And without their knowing of our own intentions, they know that we would form associations with those that the regime wants us to dehumanize. That is why we cannot see a Pakistani in our films. That is why we have to show a Muslim in a certain way in our art and literature and films. They have been successful in marginalizing all influences of the other. But poetry, music, literature, it's instinctive. You can't make people hate it. That's why you have to ban it. Art in this ecosystem becomes a threat because it refuses to obey borders. A song sung in Lahore can find its way into a Delhi wedding. A ghazal penned in Karachi can make a Bombay poet weep. And that is precisely the danger that they are afraid of. Because once you begin to see a Pakistani not as a propaganda cutout, but as the voice that soothed your heartbreak, you cannot go back. Once you love a poem, you cannot unlove its author. And that is the secret fear of the state. Not that art will inspire treason, but that it will inspire tenderness. That's why you remove Faiz from coursework. That's why you block any association with the other. Because once you start to see them as fully evolved humans and heroes and people who are sometimes better than you, there's no going back. There is a weariness in all of us who have borne witness to all this for too long. Cynicism tempts us like a warm bed in winter. It tells you it's too late, that speaking is futile, that the system is too entrenched to be shaken, and yet every silence you consent to becomes another stone in the architecture of cruelty. Faiz understood this. He lived through empires, exile, and betrayal, and still he said, "Bol." Because the moment you stop speaking is not peace, it is death. We are not merely living through an authoritarian turn. We are living through forgetting, a forgetting of our plurality, of our poetry, of the fundamental truth that no nation can be built on fear and still call itself free.
और ये आखिरी नज़्म है जिसका उन्वान है दुआ, जो बेहद जिसने मेरे दिल पे असर किया जब मैंने इसको पहली बार पढ़ा, क्योंकि ये दुआ अपने लिए नहीं मांगी गई है. दुआ, आइए हाथ उठाएं हम भी, आइए हाथ उठाएं हम भी, हम जिन्हें रस्म दुआ याद नहीं, हम जिन्हें सोज मोहब्बत के सिवा कोई बुत कोई खुदा याद नहीं. आइए अर्ज गुजारें कि निगारे हस्ती जहर इमरोज में शीरीनी फरदा भर दे. वो जिन्हें ताब गिराबारी अय्याम नहीं, उनकी पलकों पे शबो रोज को हल्का कर दे. जिनकी आंखों को रुख सुबह का यारा भी नहीं, उनकी रातों में कोई शम्मा मुनव्वर कर दे. जिनके कदमों को किसी रह का सहारा भी नहीं, उनकी नजरों पे कोई राह उजागर कर दे. जिनका दीन पैरवी ये किज़्ब व रिया है, उनको हिम्मत कुफ्र मिले, जुर्रत तहकीक मिले. जिनके सर मुंतज़िर तेग़ जफा हैं, उन्हें दस्ते कातिल को झटक देने की तौफीक मिले. इश्क का सिर्र निहा जाने तपां है जिससे, इश्क का सिर्र निहा जाने तपां है जिससे, आज इकरार करें और तपिश मिट जाए. हर्फ हक जो दिल में खटकता है कांटे की तरह, आज इजहार करें और खलिश मिट जाए.
In the end, all tyrannies fare the same thing. A voice unbought, a love unsanctioned, a citizen unafraid. And so we must speak. See, I wouldn't have written anything on this. I have slowly come to realize that these ramblings, in many cases, could be pointless. And being a passive cynic is, as I said, so much easier than being an annoying idealist. But then I remember that Faiz said कि बोल ये थोड़ा वक्त बहुत है जिस्म जुबां की मौत से पहले. बोल कि सच जिंदा है अब तक. बोल जो कुछ कहना है कह ले.
हम देखेंगे, हम देखेंगे.
लाजिम है कि हम भी देखेंगे,
हम देखेंगे,
हम देखेंगे.
वो दिन के जिसका वादा है,
जो लौहे अज़ल में लिखा है.
हम देखेंगे,
हम भी देखेंगे, हम भी देखेंगे.
जब जुल्मों से सितम के कोहे गरा
रूही के तरह उड़ जाएंगे, हम देखेंगे।
हम महकूमों के पांव तले ये धरती धड़ धड़ धड़केगी। और अहले हकम के सर ऊपर जब बिजली कड़कड़ धड़केगी।
हम देखेंगे, हम देखेंगे, हम देखेंगे।
बस नाम रहेगा अल्लाह का, जो गायब भी है हाजिर भी,
जो मंजर भी है नाजिर भी। उठेगा अनल हक का नारा, उठेगा अनल हक का नारा।
जो मैं भी हूँ और तुम भी हो, और राज करेंगे करके खुदा।
जो मैं भी हूँ और तुम भी हो, हम देखेंगे,
हम देखेंगे, हम देखेंगे,
हम देखेंगे।